I'd like to ask about the cultural boycott. Could you address how effective it is and how we can make it more effective?
I can add something just very brief before I pass it on to the panelists. So, as a historian, there was a remarkable shift within the academic movement. One of the most conservative and oldest academic association, the American Historical Association, in January overwhelmingly passed a resolution condemning scholasticide in Gaza. So this was seismic for this, historically conservative association. Regrettably, the president of the association, behind closed doors, vetoed this democratic process. So the movement, it's unfortunate that the veto went through, but for the AHA to make the decision to begin with is incredible. This is a very conservative organization. The veto process also indicated for any members who were, unsure, not fully with us, are now kind of becoming aware about this undemocratic process and the quote unquote Palestine exception. So that's my experience within the academic institutions. There's also across Canada, we're seeing faculty associations endorse PDS. So refusing to do collaborative work with Israeli institutions or receive fundings on projects that are backed by any corporation or any academic institution that is receiving money or benefiting off of the apartheid. But I'll pass it on to the panelists as well. So the question is about cultural boycott. Yes, Bram.
No, thank you so much. I think that each country and each group and solidarity movement is unique. In South Africa, we've been able to leverage government a fair amount, and that we felt was a meaningful contribution. We know there are a lot of contradictions. Government is prone to sell out, and that's the nature of governments and so on. But we've been able to get a number of victories domestically, which we think were quite symbolic and quite important. So over the last 4 or 5 national government ministers of arts, sports, and culture, we've been able to have Tula Singisi, who was the chairperson of the Communist Party in South Africa, but was also our national minister in cabinet for sports, arts, culture, to publicly refuse to attend a Davis Cup soccer match and issue a press statement saying because Israel's playing in this match, he wouldn't attend. We've also been able to later have Nathi Mutetwa, who was our Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, refuse to support Miss South Africa in a beauty pageant that was hosted in Haifa. So our national minister and government spoke out saying she does not represent us. We refused, she shouldn't go. She did proceed, but she went for her own jacket, because when your government says we don't support Miss South Africa, and she proceeded to go because it's a private company or organization, and we don't have the constitutional mechanisms to stop people from traveling to such events. But she went under a huge cloud of humiliation. And as with lots of campaigns, even the victories that we don't win, sometimes the amount of media and awareness and conscious attention they get is more powerful than even the victory itself. So we found that huge international media attention was now focused on Miss South Africa and whether or not she'd attend this pageant. And it helped, I think, a lot in awareness. And then our former minister, Zizi Kodwe, prior to the Olympics, wrote to the Olympics committee asking for Israel to be disallowed participation. Now, I'm not sure whether that's been public or not, but that definitely happened. So these are the kind of victories around sport. And I think the Miss South Africa's arts culture. Now, they might not have been victories, but it's still quite seismic for our government to have spoken out on those issues. And we'll continue to push for a complete ban of any sport and cultural activities with Israel. But in each federation, each sport, and with our government, we're just trying to figure out where and which levers. So that's part of our campaign currently. But there have been victories, and South Africa is becoming a country where people are ashamed to be seen anything to do with Israel. Over the last decade or two, we've seen huge number of murals on people's walls for Palestinian solidarity. Cars all have Palestinian solidarity stickers, and next to no cars anymore have Israeli flags on their windows stuck. So there's a huge change in the civil society that is basically marginalizing and making it very difficult for Israel to participate.
Thank you, Bram. Bana?
Yeah, in relation to this question, I don't want to be cynical, but I don't think that boycotts alone are in fact the most effective. They have to be coupled with other things. And I think the thing that is almost always forgotten is the power of unions, trade unions. I think it's very important that we mobilize the unions. And it has to do with the fact that unions have a lot of power to destabilize companies, food markets where they have to sell things. Like if you are boycotting food items that are sold in store, but then the workers are still handling them, putting them in front of, or handling those products, I think it's not going to be as useful as, the workers also saying, look, we don't want to handle these products. We don't want to put them on shelves ourselves too. We will engage in strike and we will support the boycott as well. And so they will be, holding themselves to principle. This, in fact, happened in Ireland, where I'm based, usually not today, though. I'm in Palestine. We had a boycott of Dunnes stores. And in Dunnes stores boycott, what happened was that, the workers decided not to handle any food items, any products from South Africa, apartheid South Africa. And so they were like, look, we don't want to handle any of that stuff. We want to have a strike as well. We refuse to handle the items. And if you want to handle the items, we will strike completely. We will not be working. And so they decided to do that. In fact, actually, this has helped also the Dunnes stores to actually implement the complete boycott. They no longer dealt with it. They no longer bought those items. And I think that was a very powerful move. It wasn't just that people boycotted the items, it was also that the workers decided not to handle the products. And the same thing is in academic institutions. If the staff do not want to work, they're on strike for Palestine, I don't think the institution can just say, oh yeah, we have to engage in programs with Israeli institutions and blah blah anymore, because the whole institution will be disrupted if the staff decide not to work. So I mean, yes, students can hold protests, they can say we don't want to engage in seminars and things like that, but it's not going to be as helpful as if the unions of staff unions organize themselves. So I think we have to look at that and the role of unions. In Ireland, we had successfully shut down the embassy. There's no longer an Israeli embassy in Ireland. And I think no matter how many times people tell you that it's actually because the Israeli just government decided that it's going to shut it down on its own, that's a lie. It's happened because of the work of the people, the unions. We had Artists for Palestine, Academics for Palestine, Mothers Against Genocide, Writers for Palestine. Every group had something to do with Palestine. Every community had something to do with Palestine. Palestine was put everywhere. So I think boycott should just not be a simple tactic of NGOs or groups. I think it just should be ingrained in those communities, in unions and whatnot. And I think my hope is that this thing that happened in Ireland would happen in other places as well, because we need to do that. It can't just be boycott. We need to, as Bram said beautifully, I think it needs to be a way where people just don't want to have to do anything with anything Zionists or anything Zionism. I think we want kind of to remove, or what we call designify, our spaces, our places, our institutions from Zionism completely, discursively and materially.